Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet Earth. This is your host, Rebecca Jernigan, and you're listening to Journeys with Rebecca right here on wolfspiritradio.com and simulcast on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com Studio B. Welcome, everybody. And please do remember that both stations, Wolf Spirit Radio and Freedom Slips, are totally listener-supported. Any donations really do make a difference. It allows for all the wonderful show hosts and their guests to continue to provide the best and latest information to you. Please go to my website, that's journeyswithrebecca.com, and check out the archives, the upcoming guests and topics. I have 2 new classes, one in October. That's this month for the timeline, and one in November, which is the Atlantis Crystal Cave. I'm also offering one-on-one mentorships. That's also available. I've changed my session days and times for appointments. Sometimes I can accommodate if you just email me at Rebecca at journeyswithrebecca.com, and I'll be happy to see if we can't get something figured out there. Tonight I have an extremely fabulous guest for you. We have missed her. She has been on the show many, many times before in the past, and I'm so just very happy that I was able to get a hold of her. We have Wendy Kennedy here with us tonight, and Mrs. P, of course, also returns with her. And we're going to talk with Wendy and about what she's been up to, and of course the P's are going to want to talk about a few things. We're also going to be taking your questions in the second hour. So if you do have questions, please remember to put them in all caps so that we can find them easily as we're going through in the second hour to answer your questions. Now, the P's are going to be here talking a little bit about boundaries, not getting caught up in drama that isn't yours, which is, I think, is really important. Being more conscious of your energy and when or where you're vibrating, which is really important. Dreaming a new reality, envisioning and feeling what you'd like to create rather than what is currently before you or what's been created in the past. This is going to be a fabulous show. So without further ado, I want to welcome Wendy to the show. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Rebecca.
Oh my gosh, it's been forever. I'm giving you big cosmic hugs.
Oh, right back at you.
It is just so wonderful to have you back on, dear, and it's wonderful to hear your voice. And you have just been a busy girl. You've got so many things to share with everyone tonight. So what has Wendy been up to? You've just got so much going on.
You know, it's been busy, but at the same time, I've been trying to slow down just a little bit to create better balance in my life. So in some ways, I seem to have disappeared in some areas, and in others, it seems to really be expanding. So, you know, I've been working a lot more with what the guides have given me as far as these light codes that they call galactic light codes. And they are symbols that represent the language of light. And so I've been working more and more with the codes that they're giving so that people can more easily shift their frequency. So a lot of my new work has been geared towards that. So there's a lot of exploration there, which has been really fun for me because they started giving those to me when I first started channeling over 20 years ago. And a couple of years ago, they came and they said, it's time to start working with them again. So that's been really fun.
You know, I remember talking to you briefly about those codes, and I think that's just really fantastic that this information that they gave you all those years ago is now being applied. You're applying it, and obviously there's still probably a lot more that as people get used to it, as you get used to it, and as the whole energy and consciousness level kind of elevates, these codes are probably going to get even more so and even more in depth. And I think what we're seeing is we're on a verge of a consciousness shift on this planet that it's actually going. We're not waiting for it. We're actually in it. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. We're in the thick of it. We keep asking, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? It's like, you're living it.
You're here. It's now. I know you've probably had a lot of clients and stuff too that have talked about different anomalies and things that have kind of gone on in their world and in their space. Maybe you could share, without obviously divulging any of your clients, but divulging some of the information that maybe they have talked about as far as some of the differences that people have been experiencing. For me, it's been like you were talking about time is, there's been expansion and there's been compression of time. There's been like the dimensions are like you set and watch both sides of them. You can watch 2 or 3 dimensions at the same time, that kind of thing. What have you been noticing with your clientele?
What's interesting is that there definitely are themes on different days. When I sit down, if I work with a couple clients in a day, there seems to be a theme for the day, and we're all going through the same kind of stuff. Lately it's been a lot of stuff around control, just people having to give up that level of control. And when we do, they're seeing things manifest very quickly. That seems to be something that's up for people. And then also wanting to connect more and more with their guides. I think that's fascinating to me, because when I first started, there were very few people who were doing it. And now it's become something that is so much easier for people to do. People are seeing light ships, and they're sensing beings around them, and they're seeing orbs of light more and more. So it's just kind of a byproduct of elevating our frequencies, and this is definitely something that I'm hearing a lot more about.
And I think for the listeners out there, Wendy, I think that was really pertinent information, because, there's so many people that sit in their homes and they don't really have anyone to actually, talk with, or maybe they're, they have to go to work 9 to 5 every day or whatever the case may be. And they have these experiences and they're not really quite sure, what to make of it. Is that my imagination? Is this real? Is this, what is this? And then they get on shows like this with people such as yourself, and they're listening to this kind of communication, and they're going, and it really does help people all across the globe, those that are listening, those that will listen later, to maybe go in search of some assistance to help them, guide them through their own processes so that they can get comfortable with it, get more used to it. Because I it's like, this is the new normal,
It really is. It is. I used to say that years ago. This will be the new normal. You'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, now we're in the new normal. Everyone's going, and they're making commercials with that same little jingle. This is welcome to the new normal. You're like, somebody's been listening to the metaphysical community.
Yeah. But,
I love it.
It's interesting with people, especially when they start opening up to their intuitive gifts and they start to read these subtle frequencies. They start seeing things or hearing things. Sometimes we expect that to be a really strong, obvious event, and it's not. It's usually pretty subtle, and sometimes we dismiss that as our imagination. And I think people are starting to begin to notice that, there's a pattern, there's a difference here. When I really check in, it feels different to me than just when I use my imagination. And I think that's important for people to recognize, because they do assume, for someone like me or like you, that when we tap into that energy, that it's really obvious. It's like this big booming voice in the sky. It's far more subtle than that.
Yeah, and I'll have to tell you, my guides years ago, that was one of my biggest lessons was learning how to tune in, right? Because they would have to speak loudly, so to speak, in order to get my attention or make something happen that really grabbed my attention, right? When I was younger. And then it would be like, okay, now you just need to just quiet your mind. Just listen. And so I would sit and do that. And I would quiet my mind and I would listen. And of course I wouldn't hear anything. It would be very, very quiet, to the point where you're like, I'm in some kind of a void space, man. I don't even hear a cricket or nothing, nothing in the background, nothing. And so, I asked them about that. I said, okay, I don't hear nothing. They said, exactly. Now, tune in just a little bit more. Just relax and rest. Just rest there and relax. It was all about relaxation, right? Just letting it flow. And then pretty soon, the subtleties is what started to show up. And that's where the key is. And that's what I learned years ago, was that's the key, is the subtleties. It's not like you said, the big booming voice or the, they had to do it at first to get my attention, to make me go, what do you want? Hello. And then it's like, okay. And so you listen to the quiet, and the more you listen to the quiet, the more you begin to hear things and feel things and see things that you wouldn't have done before. And it begins to become part of your second nature in some cases, like probably for yourself, almost first nature, and the other part of it becomes second nature, So it's really fun. I think it's a really good information for people to hear that, to learn to, it is the subtleties. You're one of the few people, by the way, that I've ever heard them say. So I'm just glad you did.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language or learning how to read when you're a child. When somebody teaches you the alphabet, when somebody teaches you the words, then you can start to read a book. And it's the same thing with those frequencies. When you learn to read the frequencies, then a whole universe of knowledge opens up. There's a whole library of information out there, and we just have to learn how to read.
Yeah. And I'd like to expound on that a little bit. The energies, you're talking about reading energies. For me, and I don't know how it works for you, but for me, the energies will come in with, some of it will come in with a feeling or a sense, a sensation, such as, it'll feel rhythmic or melodic, or the energy will feel kind of chaotic, but controlled. So there's a feeling, and then sometimes the energies will come in with a color. And then the colors can be very subdued, or they can be very bright. They can be pulsating. And this tells me different ways of going in and what is it that I'm looking at. So I'll have to follow, I follow it. I follow whatever the lead is. I follow it. I don't try to, predetermine what that is. Instead, I let it lead me what it is I need to learn or see or hear or understand. Is that how it works for
Very
you?
Interesting. It's a little different. For me, sometimes it's like a little film strip, or I'll get images. Mm-hmm. They'll show me images, and then there's usually a story underneath it. As I get the image, then I have somewhere to kind of open up into, and I'll get quiet and allow more information about that image to come in. And then at other times, it's different when I'm channeling for other people, because my mouth is moving and I don't always know before, the words that are coming out. It's kind of a strange sensation the first few times you do it. And then you just kind of learn to trust it. Sometimes I hear the words before they come out, but, and then sometimes it's just a knowingness. I have a deep knowingness, and then again, it's like this packet of information that I can open up to. And when they're really giving me a big download, like I just got one yesterday, for a new recording that they want to do. And then it's like all this energy coming in. It sometimes it almost feels like too much. It's like it's coming in fast, and I can't hold on to all of it, but I know it's a download, because I'll get all of these ideas and all of these bits and pieces of information, but yet I can't retain all of them right now in this moment, and I don't have a clear way to articulate all those thoughts and ideas. And then we go back and we kind of unpack that. So we'll sit down and I'll talk about it with them and say, all right, so talk about this concept that you were giving me. I need more details. Can we flesh this out a bit? So it's different depending on what I'm accessing. Mm-hmm. But
agreed.
I get a lot in my body as far as physical sensations. For me, clairsentience is my strongest sense, the strongest way that I get the information. I don't really hear too much in a way that it would be like hearing your voice or anything like that.
Yeah, that's just so interesting. Here we are doing this kind of work, and we both do it in such different ways, but yet we can a lot of times end up in very similar places. I find that rather fascinating, how that works, getting this piece of information. And I'm one of those, I'm a clairvoyant, so I can see what what you were talking about when you was going, they give me this picture and there's these words and then I can unpack and open it up. And it just showed me what they do. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I call it zooming in and zooming out. Like they'll give me the picture and it'll be right there in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so close. I can't make out anything. So I have to like literally push out a camera. It's like taking a camera and pushing the view back so that I get more of a view. And sometimes they'll let me see, 360, I can get a 360. Sometimes it's like looking at a flat screen, and I think this is fascinating. I just love hearing about how people can access the information. And the reason why this conversation is so important is because I know there are people out there that have their own gifts and talents, and they're trying to figure out what it is that they're looking at or hearing or how they do it or what have you. And so these kind of conversations are very important, I think, for people to understand that we're all very different, but we're accessing similar information for the most part. Many of us are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. We all process it. It's just frequency that comes in, and then we choose how to interpret it through the senses, and all of us are getting it in different ways. And I think that really is the challenge, because we're expecting it to come visually, and then all of a sudden you're the person who's feeling it all in your body. And actually that was where I struggled, because I was trying to channel verbally and it just wasn't happening at the beginning, but I was having all these experiences in my body and I didn't know how to interpret that. And I had to figure that out over time.
Wow.
And, I think people just kind of have to experiment a little bit with that and follow their intuition about how they need to work with their own gift and how they're interpreting those signals.
And I think the word you used in there was trust, and learning how to trust what pieces of information you get is really, really important. And learning how to understand the signals and the signs and the information and how it comes to you is just as important as well. So for all of you out there, just keep working with it. That there's lots of ways to get some assistance with that. And, and I think this is a great way to start this conversation, especially after all the years. We kind of catching up with each other, reminding each other how we do things.
Yeah, I don't always stop to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, it is very difficult for me. It was very difficult to articulate. And I didn't learn how to really do that, Wendy, until literally just a few years ago, how to articulate how it was that I saw, felt, or experienced things, from, my viewpoint from how things come in. So, and I'm much older than you are, so you're way up on me, girl. And I'm grateful for it, but it took me years to figure out how to articulate how it was that the information came to me and how I could, share that with other people as well. That's pretty fascinating. So you've been busy with your galactic light codes, and they are, I'm assuming they have been extremely helpful not only to you, but to those that you share them with as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been fascinating to me, the kinds of shifts that people have had working with it. There's the process, which the Pleiadians have kind of surmised their perspective on the process of manifestation and what you need to do. And, people had some really fascinating results with that. I had one student who went through and she was really focused on abundance. And about a week after she completed the course, she inherited $1 million. So,
whoa.
And she wasn't expecting that. So it's been really fascinating to watch that, and people just having physical shifts and having awarenesses of the subtleties of creation. What's been the most fascinating thing for me over the last couple of years is how the information has shifted. At the very beginning, the guides would talk a lot about big picture information. They would talk about a lot of galactic information. And then over the last few years, they've stopped talking about it as much. And they said, we had to get you to open your mind to a bigger universe. And so we were talking about a lot of galactic information. And now that we've got you open, we need to get you focused back on your day-to-day life to really empower you so that you understand how this process works and so that you can create the reality that you want to create. So a lot of the information has shifted in some ways away from that bigger galactic picture, although they do talk about galactic archetypes and how that plays into your life here and now. But it's really kind of gone big and then come back down to the small, back down to yourself, and looking at the patterns and the programs and how to release that. So it's been an interesting journey with that.
Wow. So they gave you, what'd you call it? Galactic, what'd you say? Personality trait? Archetypes, that's it.
Right. So there are 7 major systems with which Earth most closely aligns. So we've got Arcturus, Lyra, the Pleiades, Sirius, Orion, Andromeda, and Cassiopeia. And we take a lot of the lessons that they were working on in those systems, and we're playing them out here in the grand game. And so as we learn to align with the wisdom of those systems, how they work through it, their how-to, it can help us here in this lifetime. So that's something else that they started working with. Actually, that was the first course that we started working with, the Galactic Light Codes. That's really how they came through, was for that course. We started there. And anymore, anything that we're doing includes those, because the codes help you to bypass the ego mind. So you're not getting lost in all of your stories about who you think you are and what you're capable of, assumptions that you make about other people or the world in general. And these frequencies simply help you to shift your resonance to your divine blueprint. And so it's been very interesting working with the archetypal patterns, because they're the same issues like control, trust, manipulation, creativity, beauty. The same things that we focus on here are our own unique expression, health and healing, balance, discipline. The same kinds of patterns that we work here, we can access the how-to as we start to connect with these other systems.
Well, that sounds like that might have been an awful lot of fun. Of course, I'm sure some of that still comes in. The archetype energy or what have you still comes in. So I think that's fascinating. Wow. Now, do you have that information on your website? I have posted it, by the way, in the chat room, your website address.
There are some pieces up there. We're just getting ready to do that again in November. Because it's a 5-week course that we do. I do it once a year, and we go through it, because I think it's a lot for people. A lot of stuff comes up in those 5 weeks, because we do 7 codes. So it's a lot of energy that we work with. But there are bits and pieces here and there. There's certainly some stuff online about some of the Orion codes. There are a few up there I know, because we really had to do a lot of integrating before we started accessing more information from the Orion system, because it was the darkest system in our galaxy. And so if we were just accessing that, we'd probably be a puddle on the floor. It would be overwhelming. we had to clear a little. And so that started coming up, I think, in 2014, maybe 2015. And control, manipulation, authority, like a lot of those heavier issues. And I know there's some codes on the website that support that. There's some up there for patience, and a recent one that's up there for free is on calm and centering, with all this chaos, with all the craziness that's going on right now. It's very challenging. We've had so many things around the globe, between the natural disasters and just horrific events that have been going on. It's challenging to stay centered and not get plugged into all of that.
Yes. And unfortunately, I've seen some people that have actually kind of went into some meltdown modes over some of these events. I mean, they're just owning it as, their own. And it's been a challenge. It has, to watch people go through that. And it's, there's just so much information out there to help people so that they don't have to have such horrific experiences with just being a viewer of it, not even being a part of it.
Right.
So yeah, it can be quite challenging for some people more so than others. You know, obviously we're not all the same, so we're all going to react a little differently. So that's a really good one for people to tap into. So, wow, that's cool. So
Yeah,
what
and I know the
else?
guys want to talk about that one too tonight.
Yeah, go right ahead. Talk about it. Right now is good.
Oh, are you ready to bring the guys in, or
Are
because I
you
know
ready?
about it? I'm happy to, at any point.
Well, now listen, I know there are probably some other things though that you want to share. So let's get back real quick before we move on to the P's. You said you're doing a 5-week course and it starts in November. When in November does this 5-week course start? I'd like to let people know that in case they're interested in signing up.
Well, we have, I still haven't solidified the date. I think it will probably be November 1st. It will be sometime
Okay.
during that first week. But if you would like more information, there's a link on the website, to add yourself to the notification list. So we'll be sure to let you know when we have that date finalized. But right now, I think it's going to be November 1st.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, that's nice to know that there's at least a list for people to sign up for, and you'll make the announcement when you get that solidified. So that's excellent. I'm going to take a look at that for my own self, to tell you the truth. 'Cause I have a lot of stuff rolling around in there, and sometimes I just need to focus, and taking classes from other people is very helpful for me at times as well. So.
We'll get you all set up.
Oh, thanks. I would appreciate it. That'd be awesome. She's going to take care of me, folks. You heard that. She's going to make sure I know when the classes start. Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic, though, that you're able to offer such really, you know, because people really are interested. I know my own clients, you know, they come to me and they want to talk about, like, most of them are, the only thing that, I have not heard anybody ever mention to me was Cassiopeia. That's the only place that out of all of them that you mentioned, that was the only one that no one has ever come to me and said, I think, you know, this has, you know, to do with, you know, some, you know, my roots, or, you know, where I have had some major experiences or whatever the case may be. That was it.
I love connecting with them. They're these amazing architects and artists. They've explored all of these dimensions of artistry, and they have really focused on the different aspects of love and beauty. So it's always fun to connect with them. So I'll be interested to see who will come through tonight. Cause I have the feeling that the guides will do some sort of language of light activation for people. And, you know, they often will blend their energy with the P's, and there's definitely a uniqueness about them, but they're really quite lovely. They're really, really lovely.
You know, when you talk about them, you've brought them forward. I'm sure you know that. They're kind of here. And that's how I don't get a lot of physical reactions, but when guides show up, I get this, like, I don't know, rush of energy that just kind of runs through my body, almost like when you have the chills, you know? And it's almost like that, and it just kind of stays there. And so when you were talking about them, I was like, oh, I could just feel that energy, and boy, you just brought them right through. They're hanging around. I imagine they'll show up at least for a minute, if nothing else. So thank you for that. That was cool.
I think right now we all could use a little extra love. I mean, we are so bombarded, especially in the news, by it's just trauma. And there are lots of beautiful things going on too. We're just not hearing about them. And, you know, I think we need a little of that exposure.
I think we need a lot of exposure of that, because I think it has to do with also, somebody told me years ago, a lady, many, many years ago, she said, you love what you put your attention to. Right. So if you're putting your attention to the drama and the trauma and the negativity and the hate and the anger, then that's what you must love in that sense. That's because that's what you're focusing on. That doesn't mean, and I always have to give this kind of, little disclaimer here, because just because you talk about love and nice things doesn't mean that you are ignoring that there are things going on in the world. But what it does do is it helps to clear the channels so that you're not owning what doesn't belong to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that you become part of a solution and not part of the problem, which is feeding. Energy is energy, and your thoughts are energy. And the more we have those terrible thoughts, the more they feed that energy, in my opinion. That's just the way I feel about it.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Because if you take your focus off it, you're no longer feeding it, and you're putting your energy into things that are going to uplift and things that you want to build and support, the new version, as opposed to trying to fight and break down the old. It just doesn't work that way, as you know. You can't do that.
No, you just can't. It doesn't work, does it? It's
No, it just keeps doing
effort
that
and
loop.
futility. Yeah, effort and futility. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so what else would you like to bring up before we bring Mrs. P in? What else would you like to chat with the audience about or let them know about?
Oh goodness, I'm just so happy to be here and chat with you.
God, I could just sit and just chat with you for a couple more hours before we do anything else. I'm sure the audience wouldn't quite like that as much, though. Although they might.
But I'm happy. I know there are probably lots of questions, especially with everything that's been happening. So I'm happy to bring the guides in and just see where we go for the rest of the time and take some questions if that works.
That'll work. And at the top of the hour here, we'll do a 5-minute break. And of course, the P's I know are well versed in breaks and all of that. And we'll be taking just writing questions. We won't be taking phone calls. So,
okay.
Just to let you know and let them know. So we'll just sit back and let you get focused.
Great. And, before I bring them in, I always like to tell people who've never heard the Pleiadian Collective before that they are a group of about 2,500 beings of light. They don't have physical form. They actually align with the star Alcyon rather than incarnate to a planet. They align with the template, with the blueprint, and with the mission, if you will, for that star. And they work with tone and sound, which is why their dialect sounds different than my own. It's not really any one particular dialect. It's just tones and sounds that resonate with you at a cellular level. So in addition to receiving the information, it's almost as if you're getting a healing as well as they help you to shift the frequencies of your field. They're not doing it for you, but they're pointing out where you can make adjustments. As you start to hear these modulations of frequency, you'll shift within your own field because we all naturally want to gravitate towards balance. We want to gravitate towards source energy to a higher frequency. So as you experience that, you might notice shifts in your body. So I'm going to bring them in and we'll kind of see where we go here.
All right.
Yes, hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you all. So feel free to call us the Pleiadian Collective, the P's, Mrs. P. Very early on, it was very difficult years ago for you all to conceive of 2,500 beings showing up at once, and so we said just call us Mrs. P. And if you're wondering why are these beings called so many different things, this is in part why. So we are very thrilled and honored to be here, and we have a tremendous amount of gratitude for you, Rebecca, for holding the space and for all that you do for those who listen. You create such a wonderful container of information, a repository, if you will. So know that even when we're not here with Wendy, we are still around supporting you as well. So,
thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, as we said, to be here. And there's a lot going on in the collective conscious right now that we want to talk about. And then we're going to take your questions, but we're just going to talk here for just a few moments. There is a lot of trauma on the planet at the moment, and really you have recreated collectively these experiences so that you can clear the trauma within. Now, some of you have experiences that might not go to the extreme of trauma in your life. They're a minor incident. You might categorize it as a scrape or a boo-boo. It's not quite as intense as a trauma, and it doesn't really matter the intensity. The
issue is that you're still carrying the frequency within your own field. And as you look out onto the collective, as you look at those who are living the challenging situations, you yourself do not have to go through it to the extent and the level that they are experiencing it. You can observe it, and you can clear and heal your own instance of the same frequency without having to walk that dramatic path. The problem for many of you is that you are not, you're not one observing the energy that you are getting caught up in. You are finding that your little incident on a scale of 1 to 10 may be at a 1, but yet you are plugging into the frequency of those that are walking that path in a much more dramatic way, and suddenly your 1 has gone up to a 20. And you've created all of this trauma in the body, and it is really not serving you to stay in that loop. So it's becoming more and more important for all of you, we've talked about this for years, that you have some sort of practice in place for yourself, that you use the tools that are in your toolbox. You've been amassing them for a very long time, and now it's time to stop with the research, and it's time for you to apply the knowledge that you have amassed. So you have your tools such as meditation and breathing, visualization, and there are many variations on that, and it's important that you're doing them on a regular basis. The tools for most of you that are in your toolbox are the feminine aspects. They're forcing you to put yourself in the feminine state of reception, of quiet and stillness. Otherwise, you are just in a reactive mode and you're taking action without grounding, without opening up to the divine energy. In the process of manifestation, in a linear perceived reality, the feminine always comes first. In the multidimensional reality, the feminine and the masculine are co-created at the same time because we don't exist in time. All things are going on, past, present, and future, in this now moment. So masculine and feminine are being created at the same moment. But for you, the feminine always comes first, and that means you getting still, selecting a vibrational frequency, and then moving into the masculine by pulsing it out, and then moving back to the feminine state to observe the frequencies that are in front of you, to recognize the ones that are in alignment with what you would like to experience, and then again moving back into the masculine, taking action, stepping out to greet it. And this is the process that you go through. But when you get caught in that drama, you aren't taking the time to center and get clear about that feminine, and you're just taking action from the ego level. You're not grounding and elevating the frequency first. And what is being emanated from you, what's being pulsed out, is all the fear programs. It's just fear, 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 fear. And so fear is what is reflected back as your reality. And it's time that you stop the cycle, that you make selections, that you decide what it is that you want to experience as your reality, that you decide that you want to feel a particular way, that you want to have different kinds of experiences. It's vital that you don't use the past as a reference point, meaning that if you are looking around at the state of the world, it's very difficult based on the past and what's happened in your world to create something that's different, because what you want to create has never been created before on your planet. So you've got to dream. You've got to allow yourself the opportunity to be curious, to want to explore. And we're talking about exploring frequencies and not being locked into this idea of what the form is going to look like. Your part in the co-creative process with Source is to work with your resonance, is to work with the frequency. Universe is responsible for bringing you form. It is your job to recognize the frequency of the form as it is presented to you. Is this the frequency that I want to engage with? Yes and no. And if it is, then you step out to meet it, because as the universe is orchestrating things, it can bring you things in ways that you can't even begin to imagine that tick 5 of the boxes off. And your little limited idea of form might only tick one. So the universe can present you with things that are even bigger and better than you imagine. The process that you're going through right now, the period that you're going through right now, there are no forms that are really going to match the kinds of institutions, the kinds of programs, the kinds of day-to-day reality that you are looking to create. There just isn't a form for it. And if you're looking for the form before you take action, you're going to be sitting around for a long time because it doesn't exist. You're going to be asked to put one foot in front of another and being guided. If you're doing that from the ego level, it's terrifying. You just will not take a step. But if you are taking time to get centered, to pay attention to where your frequencies are, what's being shown to you, you're observing, you're in that feminine state, then you are not challenged in the same way to take a step without knowing where it's going to lead. You're just curious. All right, well, I don't know exactly where this is going, but let's find out. This will be fun. When you were a child, you wanted things to be different. Every day when you woke up, you wanted to have a new experience. There wasn't a one of you that woke up and thought, I want things to be pretty similar to how they were yesterday. We guarantee it, but today it's adults. You say, I'm scared of change. I'm not sure. Change is a scary thing. So we invite you to reacquaint yourselves with that curiosity of your inner child. All right? You've been there. You know how to access that curiosity, and that's really something that is high on the list of what you all need to do. Just get curious. As you are just curious and you're exploring, you're not afraid of failure, because failure is when your expectation of an experience doesn't match the actual vibrational experience. And if you don't have an expectation, you're just exploring and curious, then life gets very fun. And you don't ever feel like you're failing. All you say is, oh, well, that wasn't quite what I expected, but fabulous. That's interesting. Now I know what that frequency is. Do I want to keep creating it, or do I want to create something that's vastly different? And then you go back in, you choose a new frequency inside, you pulse it out, and reality is reflected back to you, and then you engage with it. So that's the cycle you're working on right now.
So let me ask you, Mrs. P, I've had this kind of a vibrational vision. I've had it for many years, and it kind of comes in. I really wish I could, differentiate that says, hey, when I do this, this is when this happens, but it seems to be kind of arbitrary. I guess maybe I'm always in maybe more of a quiet space, but I get this, it's like a vision it's a very beautiful, I always get this very loving presence, this loving feeling, this soft energy, everything that's kind of almost looks like it's in a mist. The fruit is from the trees are sweeter than sweet. There seems to be a lot of calm and beauty, and I hang on to that a lot, and I hold on to that. And I'm wondering now that I'm listening to you, if that isn't what you were just talking about, is something that's just is the creative aspect that has been given to me, that this is what I'm trying to create, is a world that is softer, sweeter, fresher. If that's what this is, or if it's a memory.
It's both, actually. You've had other lifetimes and other places where life was sweet like that. There wasn't a lot of high drama. And so there is that memory that's been implanted that you say, I feel like things can be a different way. I don't know how. I don't know how that's going to come to fruition. But you have the ability to imagine it within yourself. You're dreaming it. Mm-hmm. And now what you all can do with that kind of sensation is to imagine what that would feel like to have that as your reality. What would it feel like in the body? Would the body be relaxed? Would it be tense? Would it be warm? Would it be cold? Would it feel tingly? Would it feel numb? Really imagine what physically would be happening to your body. And then what would it feel like emotionally? Would you feel happy, joyous, calm, feel a sense of peace, love. Imagine the emotions, and then what kind of thoughts would go along with it? I'm so happy. I am easily exchanging love with others. Every moment is filled with love and joy. What kinds of thoughts would go through your mind if that was your reality? And that's what we're talking about when we say you have to sit and imagine. You can hold a thought, but your emotions drive it into being. So if your thought is, I'm living in a peaceful world, you have to imagine what that is. The stronger you can imagine it, and the more passionately you imagine it, the faster it becomes part of your reality. Now, you don't have to wait for the collective to experience these things. So if in your reality, life is sweet, people are loving, people are kind and generous, as you imagine that as your reality, there can be a lot of chaos in the world, but as you move through your day, you see these qualities reflected back to you in your experiences. So you can be happy now. You can experience acts of kindness and love throughout your entire day. And this is where many of you get caught up. You feel that you're damned to experience the chaos of the world, and you're waiting for ETs, you're waiting for other beings to come in and change it and fix it. You're the ones you're waiting for. You have to imagine these states, and you will start to imagine, or you'll start to experience these things. And it doesn't take the majority of you all to embody these frequencies in order to see massive change on your planet. And that's also really important for you to know. You don't have to suffer while you're seeing other people suffering around you. Be the living example of what is possible. That doesn't mean that you're ignoring their pain. It means you hold compassion for them, but also you're able to help elevate them by being that living example of an expression of joy or love. That is part of your service. We often get asked by you all, what am I supposed to do with my life? And what's my life purpose? And we say it is to experience the greatest joy that you possibly can and to be of service to others. And by being of service to others, that first means that you are nourished, that you yourself are, you're not excluded from that joy. Being of service doesn't mean throwing yourself on the altar for sacrifice. It means that you too are going to benefit as the whole benefits. You are part of the whole, and so you are also benefiting. It's not that you have to give everything up in service to others. Everyone wins in that scenario. The difference between light and dark is that the light is working for service and lifting the whole. Dark is only for self. And that's really the only difference, and you're separate. The elevation and the amount of energy that dark can access, there is a fair amount when you understand the metaphysical principles, but it's limited. It's finite because the dark is perceiving itself as being separate from source energy, and that's still in a container. The light has the ability to become infinite. However, if the light sees itself as separate from the dark, it also puts itself in that container. So you have to see the light and dark as being part of the whole and embracing all of it. All right, we went off on a bit of a tangent, so we hope we answered your question in there somewhere.
Oh, you did. That was beautiful. It was lovely, and it also gave a lot of information to others as well. Because I think that's a big problem, Mrs. P, sometimes, is when we see other people suffering and going through terrible things, the human, being who they are, can feel guilty because they're feeling love and compassion and all of these other things, and they think, oh, well, I shouldn't feel like that because other people are suffering. And it's actually quite the opposite. That's kind of a program that I think needs to be, redone in the mind, in the mindset and the energy patterns of the human.
Yeah, so, before we break here, we would love to do an activation for that to help people release the guilt of being happy, because many people carry that in their genetic line. Who am I to be happy? Or, you're above your station if you're happy while everyone else is suffering. And, that doesn't mean that you're ignoring someone else's pain. It means if there is something that you can do to be of service, great, but you can't change that for them. That is often their path to walk to wake them up. Sometimes they're going through their own dramas, so that they can grow. And, too often when you all understand that you create your own reality, you get lost in this idea that somehow you are wrong, you're guilty, you're bad if things aren't going the way that you want them to go, if they're not all rainbows and unicorns. And really, when you create these challenging situations, they're there to help you to grow. You may not always understand in the moment at the ego level why you are experiencing it. It may be a lesson that 10 years from now you'll look back and say, all right, well, I went through that experience, and now there are all these people who are standing before me that can learn and benefit from what I went through without having to walk that path themselves. I learned that, my material possessions didn't define me by having had that traumatic experience. Was it comfortable moving through it in the moment? Not at all. But it taught me something. And that's important for you all to take away from every experience. There is value in there. And when you understand the value, when you start to perceive it, you release yourself from the pain of the experience. We'd also say perceive others as being capable. When they create a challenge for themselves, they have also created the solution at the same time. They just have to elevate their perspective. They are fully capable of moving themselves out of the pain cycle and changing and shifting that. When you look at someone and you pity them over and over and over again, what happens is they pick up on that resonance and they begin to doubt themselves. Whoa, they're not, everybody thinks that I'm just not capable. I must not be capable, or I'm not worthy, or there's something wrong with me. They pick up on this frequency, and it gets very easy for them to plug into. So see them as being divinely capable, divinely supported, and if it is your lot, as it were, to be of service, you can offer, and if it's received, wonderful. If not, wonderful. All right? But see them as being capable.
And I think that's a really good thing to say, Mrs. P, to a lot of people. I think we sometimes have a tendency to maybe underestimate the power of the human being and underestimate the ability for comprehension and application and understanding. So I think that's just absolutely fabulous. I'm waiting for the
break music, which is random at the moment.
Is
Nighthawk's he's just turned everything upside down and inside out. He's replaced the servers, so he had to redo everything. So we really don't know. We just have to keep talking until the end of until the music comes. Keep going.
That's fine. And so the reason I asked Mrs. P is because I know you wanted to do a light code, but we would probably run into the break, because there's only probably 2 minutes, and so we're like, I don't think we want to try it in 2 minutes. So maybe when we come back at the top of the hour, after the top of the hour break, we'll do that. Matter of fact, there it is now, you guys. What perfect timing. I love it. You guys, please stay with us. There's going to be more of Wendy, Mrs. P. We're going to do some activation codes. We're going to take some questions. Please stay with us. You're listening to Journeys with Rebecca. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Journeys with Rebecca. We're here tonight with Wendy Kennedy and Mrs. P. And I do believe we still have Mrs. P with us.
Yes, we're still here, dear.
Oh, bless you, bless you. You're just so good at this, I tell you. You're so patient. Bless your heart. And I want to say thank you again. Whenever you're around, and you're around a lot, but whenever I connect with you like this on the show, it just always moves me. And so I'm very grateful and humble for your presence here with us tonight on air. So thank you for that, Mrs. P.
It's okay, yeah.
And so we're going to get back to where we left off. And did you want to go right into the activation?
Well, we want to talk about one other thing here.
Sure.
That we're seeing a pattern with those that are awakening. That oftentimes when they look around at others who perhaps aren't quite as conscious, they are sacrificing themselves because they think, oh, I'm better equipped to deal with this stuff. I'm going to take on the burden for other people because I know how all this stuff works. And it's really important, as we were talking about before, to see others as being capable. They too are divine beings of light. They may not in the moment be operating from their highest state of awareness, but they are just as capable as you are at any given moment of shifting into that heart-centered space and expressing more of their divine self. So it's really important that those of you who run this program, and we know that there are many of you who do, you do this for family members, for friends, that you will sacrifice your own needs because you think, oh, I have a greater awareness or I can manage this better than they can, that you take a look at that and that you do see others as being fully capable. All right?
Beautiful.
So we'd like to go ahead and do this activation. And so this is going to help you, one, to create better boundaries, for you not to sacrifice yourself because you think that others aren't capable, and also just to allow yourselves to see that you all are creative beings and that change doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be arduous. Now, there are lots of beings who are present who want to come in. It's really not important that you know who exactly is who. There are some Lyrans who will come in here. There are some Cassiopeians. As we do this activation, you're going to notice that the vibrations change. And don't overthink it. Don't get lost in the questioning of it. Just feel, does this resonate with me? If it doesn't, let it go. It's as simple as that. All right? So nothing you need to know, nothing you really need to do. If you're seated, arms and legs uncrossed to allow the energy to flow is best. And we'll see where we head here. Isto on the arabikata berskete in the ere me wene kita andara berskete in wera kita anda hinda ara ore me ingata andwe minda dashkete in the elu wera bedirskete para wera berskete in the lele wera in the hai in the kita andwe para we berskete in the indwar berskete in the wera arabita hista sashkete in the la wera be he sashkete andwe in wera wera berskete. I release the burdens that are not my own to bear. Istondo ora ai berskete in wera berskete in the luere he wera berskete in the lehenda anda tekete he stashkete in bu umwikete anda lelene kuto anda de diskete luere in the diskete undo hai he stashkete in the in bu wikete andwi in the katala le wera berskete in wera and wera diskete in the wera bra in wera in wera diskete and wera bra we berskete do in berenda de standa le wera ber in the he Indua berabara induere indara indala le werabara indare indua andare hista atakatanda lo endo werabrishkatandu ebrandue indakatai hista shkatandu muana nekatanda resta hista undua mue bedue berabara andure restakate. Take another nice deep breath. Ito ora pa berestak ta para beresu le berebendo era de nuere berestakte we para inda le luera para beresu berestakte le luera indore de katanda le luera indue inde te indue para keta due mue keta inda we para berestakta le luera inda ra de kotai inda andue indue inde testa kata nuere de kata induera indo ara para braskata we para kata de berestakte de luera bere inda ra de kata inda ala le luera para braskate de indue inda de indue inda de skete. I once again embrace my curiosity for life. Isto ora braskata we bere de kata andare indue inde kata andue ibteskata betkata andele luera betkata betkata inda ipara ibikata abra kata we inda de ista atata ista skete. I give myself permission to explore frequency. Isto I release my attachment to form. Take another nice deep breath. So there you are.
Wow. That was fascinating and beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. It's our pleasure.
Wow. 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 Oh my. That was beautiful.
So there's
Oh,
lots of beings here to be a support. There are different dialects for the language of light. Now, for those of you that aren't terribly familiar with it, it is a universal language that is understood by all life, and it's comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. So there are different dialects based off of cultural species, perceptions. It would be a bit like hearing English spoken in Ireland or Australia or England or the US. There is a different quality about it, but you all understand it. And so it is with some of these galactic dialects that are coming through. All of you will understand it. You'll hear different dialects through different people, and it doesn't really matter. It is still resonating with you because you understand the language at the soul level. And you hear frequencies and you say, yes, that's how it is. I've forgotten that. And you will realign yourselves. So again, there's nothing really that you need to know or do. It will simply be something that affects your state of being. All right?
perfect. Perfect. And I have to tell you that there was certainly some familiarity there when I was listening and experiencing at the same time. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people, they're chatting about it. So I'm sure there's a lot of other people that also had similar experiences. So beautiful, though. Thank you. That's just was phenomenal. Thank you so much. You've really been very busy.
We'll probably do a couple more rounds as we go, helping some people with their questions. You're ready for it. It's time for it. You're finding that there are more and more people on the planet who are speaking the language of light because you are ready for adjustments at that level. Before it was too big a stretch in a way for you to think about shifting your state of being to create a different reality. You felt that you needed to know what your programs were. You needed to know the stories, and you wouldn't change unless you knew it at the mental level. And now you are coming to an awareness that really that story, it can't be changed in the past. You can only change your state of being in the moment to create real change in your life, in the now moment and in the future. So knowing the story doesn't always serve you. Sometimes it just keeps you in the loop of the story. So you are learning that it's more important to change your state of being, and this is why we send you back to your practices. And it's not enough anymore for you just to have your practices once in the morning and once at night. You have to do it throughout the day multiple times, monitoring where you're vibrating, where are your thoughts, where are your emotions, are they where you would like them to be? Are you caught in this loop of anger that you're upset with everybody else because they're so self-obsessed, they're so self-absorbed? Are you annoyed with other drivers or the person in line at the dry cleaners? Are you upset with the people who are talking too loudly on their cell phones? Where are your thoughts? Are you focused on the negative or the positive? And that's what your reality is going to match. That's what you'll perceive as you look out into the world. So when you catch yourself, you can shift. You can shift back to the heart center. And, it is as simple as thinking of something that makes you smile. That's the fastest way we found for you all to get there. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute meditation. If you're really lost in your head, then it can feel challenging oftentimes to quiet the mind, and the more you practice, the easier it becomes. If you are someone who is overly mental, if you find that there's a lot of mental chatter, then we highly recommend that you start a practice of creative exploration for yourself, so that on a daily basis, you're taking 10 to 15 minutes to do something that is creative for the sake of being creative, for no other purpose than that. You're not writing for the bestseller. You're not painting to create that masterpiece. You're just having fun. You don't have to know what it's going to even be. As a child, you did this. You didn't plot and plan
every aspect of your piece of art. You just explored. And this is what we're trying to get you back to, because when you are just being purely creative, the mind chatter stops. So if you have a hard time meditating, this can be a tool to help you to stop the mind chatter so that when you do go to meditate, you are better able to drop into that space. The mind chatter will lessen. And also what this will help you to do is have more creative thought during the day. You'll have more ideas and inspiration about things you can do creatively to change what you might label problems. All right? You might have a difficult conversation that you need to have with someone. And if you're in that creative space, the idea can come in about how to have that conversation or a way to approach it or why that problem is there in the first place, what you gain from it. And when you see the gain, you diffuse the tension in it. It no longer becomes a victim-perpetrator, dualistic encounter. You can come from a heart-centered space and the entire thing is diffused. So this activity of doing something that's creative just for the sake of being creative is quite powerful and can help you with a lot of the problems that you're having. It seems so superfluous. It seems that it's something that is just silly, and how can this have value? It has tremendous value because you're allowing the divine to flow through in that creative moment. It's pure creativity, and your reality is your creative expression. So it's just strengthening your skill of being consciously creative.
Wonderfully said. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of people that are going to benefit from this particular conversation. I know there's a few things that I need to work on still. Don't we all?
Yeah.
You ready for some questions?
Yes.
We've got them lined up for you already, of course. This one is from Chrissy8, and she asks, can we trust activations and ascension tools that come from angels and archangels as they are Anunnaki-based? Are they really helping us ascend? I'm concerned they may contain malware.
Well, here's the thing. Think about someone on the earthly plane that you meet. It could be a friend you meet for the first time. You don't really know who they are. And you have to trust yourself and your discernment in the moment to say, do I like this person? Does what they're saying resonate with me? Because they could tell you what their name is. They could tell you where they're from. They could tell you all kinds of things about themselves. And you don't really know if it's true or not. All you have the ability to do is to sense within yourself whether there is a resonance of truth or not, whether it's in alignment with you or not. And it's the same thing interdimensionally. And this is the skill that you are learning to develop. It is called your discernment. You're learning to use it interdimensionally. If you've got a lot of fear about connecting interdimensionally, we guarantee you have the same frequency, the same issue going on human to human. And if you strengthen it in listening to your discernment at the human level, it will make it easier when you go to connect interdimensionally, because you could have a being say that they were from somewhere, but how do you really know? You don't. You have to listen to yourself. And just because a source of information is not the highest vibration doesn't mean it's wrong, and it doesn't mean that there isn't value in it for you. So you have to learn to take it for yourself. How does this sit with me? If it's something that elicits a great deal of fear, then you need to take a step back. It can be that your programs get triggered, but if you're working with a being who is of a higher vibrational nature, they are generally going to give you information that doesn't activate that much fear because it is counterproductive. We will find a way of presenting information that minimizes that impact. It doesn't mean that we're not telling you the truth. It just means there's a softer way of putting it to you. And then as you integrate more of your fear programs, we can give you a deeper level of understanding around that issue. So when it comes to the language of light and activations, it's going to be the same thing because your higher self has an awareness of what this information is anyway, and you are taking it or leaving it. And here's the biggest piece for you all. You're not a victim. You are choosing to align with a frequency or not align. You are either giving your power away or you are standing in it. And when you have a fear that someone else is giving you something that has malware in it, you are standing in a victim perspective. When you trust that you are capable of having the discernment, even at the subconscious level, that something is or isn't good for you, your higher self knows, then it's impossible for someone to truly manipulate you. If you engage in something and you have what you would consider to be a negative experience, there's value in it. And there is a reason why your higher self allowed you to have that experience, because there are some ego programs that are running that you need to have an awareness about, and it is the mirror for that. So it doesn't matter, human to human, interdimensionally. You are learning to use your discernment and to stand in your power. You will take what resonates and let the rest go. If you take something on, chances are there is a part of you in that moment that knew, something feels off, but you didn't trust it. You will have some level of awareness. We guarantee it. But you may not follow through with it. So the next time that happens, you will have a sense of, oh, something feels a little strange. I've had this feeling before. The last time I didn't pay attention to it, so this time I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to follow myself. I'm going to stand in my power with that. All right? We hope that helps.
I think it does. It certainly does. Thank you. And that was from Chrissy 8. I hope that helped her a great deal. I'm sure it did. Our next one, Mrs. P, is from DC Light. And the question is, in learning to disconnect with all the crazy energy surrounding us and becoming observers, is it normal to feel less emotional, less connected? I believe I'm learning to discern what doesn't resonate with me, but I'm feeling somewhat disconnected. My emotions don't feel as intense. Any comments or clarifications is welcome. And many thanks for your service, Wendy, Mrs. P, and Rebecca.
All right, so we're going to give two answers. So the first is that really, if you're truly connected, you're going to be feeling love as you walk through the world. You will have a sensation of a deep sense of connection, a deep sense of contentment. For many of you right now, in order to cope with all the craziness, you're shutting down your heart chakra, because it is heartbreaking for you to feel some of the intense suffering that's going on. So if you ask yourself, am I just disconnected or am I in a neutral state? Can you feel your heart center? Can you feel love? If the answer is no, then you're disconnected. So for that, what we would say is that it is important to ground, to connect to the earth. Many of you will pull your energy up from the earth, as it were, because you're closing your root chakra, your safety, your survival energy. You're shutting that down. When we look at your energetic field when you do that, because when that chakra's open, the energy field extends several feet beneath your physical feet. It almost looks like you're pulling your energy up because you are closing the chakra down. It's not extending down as far, and it goes down to about mid-thigh. So you're not allowing full energy to run. It's like plugging into a wall outlet where the plug is only halfway in there. Sometimes the appliance works, sometimes it doesn't. And that happens with your body. And it's really important that you plug all the way in. When you're plugged into Mother Earth, you're not going to plug into the dysfunction that's on the family, it's on the planet. You are not going to plug into the illusionary beliefs. What you'll plug in is to the divine energy, the starlight that is part of Mother Earth. And as you connect with that, you're connecting with the natural rhythm. She's sending out a pulse that tells you where you need to be. And when you connect with that, you feel at peace. You feel as if you are supported and nurtured. When you disconnect, you feel anxious. All right? You also will notice that you're more fatigued. So if you are working with your electronic devices a lot, they are not in resonance. The way that they're built and the frequencies that they're operating on, they're not in resonance with the natural frequency of Mother Earth. If you're a grounded person, it's not really a problem because you will entrain with the frequencies of Mother Earth. You're not being knocked off balance. But if you are not grounded, and empaths, those who are sensitive, have a tendency not to be grounded as a protection mechanism, you'll find that your electronic devices will really affect you. You might feel really agitated, really anxious, really fatigued after working in front of them or with them for an extended period of time. When this happens, it's important to connect with nature. Imagine it. If you can't get outside, imagine connecting to the core of the planet. Imagine this beautiful light coming in through the crown of your head, moving all the way through the body, all the way down to Mother Earth. And then this beautiful white light melding with the energy of Mother Earth and all the knowledge and wisdom that she has to share with you comes back up through the body, out through the crown of your head to the center of the galaxy. Now, this will help you to recharge. If you can get out in nature, all the better. All right. Now, we said there are two parts of this question that we want to give an answer to. The second is what we would say is a more advanced answer, and some of you will have a difficult time with this because you're not quite ready to make the stretch. When you talk about disconnecting from the craziness, it's really important that you don't perceive yourself as disconnecting from it. Because what will happen is that as you desire to be separate from something, you will remain in it because you are polarized to it. So if you don't like the craziness, if you want to make yourself separate from the craziness, you will stay at a vibrational match for it because you are holding a resonance with it. It's important that you acknowledge it. You don't want to make yourself separate from it. You know that it is a part of you because you are part of the whole, but it is not where your focus of resonance is. That will allow you to elevate your frequency and not be disturbed by it. This is what we would say is a boundary issue. Boundaries, there are several ways that you can all think of boundaries. You can think of it as putting yourself in a little box, a cocoon, and walling yourself off. And that might be an intermediate or a beginner way of perceiving boundaries. But the more advanced way of seeing it is in terms of resonant frequency. So imagine a waveform and a higher vibration. They're stacked one on top of another. So the dysfunction is happening at a lower vibrational rate. A higher vibrational frequency runs parallel to it. And they don't mix. They will always run parallel. So as you maintain the higher frequency, all right, you will not be in resonance with that lower one. You're not separating yourself from it in a sense of, I don't like it. There's a judgment there. It's part of you. It's a valid frequency choice, but it's the one you're not choosing to focus on. You're choosing to focus on peace, calm, serenity, not chaos, destruction. Now, many of you, we see this in the process of manifestation quite a bit, that you want something to avoid a negative consequence. So let's say you want abundance, you want money, because you want to avoid the pain of being poor, the suffering of being poor. When you are desiring something to avoid the negative, the frequency and your energy that is invested in the avoidance is much greater than your desire and curiosity of the positive expression of it. And what will happen is that will keep you in connection with the negative. So that's why many times you all will say, well, I'm focused on wanting something positive, but your fear of having the negative experience is greater. And until you let go of that fear, you will not be able to experience the positive expression. We hope that makes sense to you all. And this is why we go back to you just being curious about frequency. When you're curious, you're not attached to one or the other. Let's see how this is going to play out. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I'm just curious. So if you want to create abundance, you have to come at it with the idea of, I'm really curious about what it would be like to have money, to have infinite abundance, to allow that energy to flow through me. You have to experience and want that more than you want to avoid the pain. All right?
Perfect. Well, that's very good. That's very well said. I love that. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome.
Beautiful.
Good work.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. And I get this one a lot myself, Mrs. P. How do I get unstuck? I have been trying to get clarity. This is from Becky Lynn. I have been trying to get clarity on what I'm supposed to be doing, but I just don't seem to have any motivation.
Take a step in any direction. It doesn't matter which one. Even if it is what you at a human level would say is a wrong choice, you're going to get feedback. And that feedback will help you because indecision shuts down energy flow. It's fear. You're standing in fear. Indecision is fear. When you take a step in any direction, the universe will bring frequency back to you. You'll say, oh, this resonates, or oh no, this is not the direction for me. And then you make a course correction. So take a step. It doesn't have to be a massive one. Just take one in any direction, and that will help to move energy. That will help you to gain clarity. We would also say this creative process we were talking about earlier will help you with that because you're allowing more creative energy to run, and then you're going to have creative ideas that come in about what direction you need to step in. So that can also be of service to you.
I like that. That's very good. Very good. Okay, let's see. Who's this one from? Bring the Light. Why are there so many references to the Cygnus constellation by ancient civilizations, and what is our connection to these beings present and future too?
There are some beings from Cygnus that are here. We wouldn't say it's one of the major seven, as Wendy mentioned those 7 systems earlier, simply because you've already integrated a lot of the energies that Cygnus worked on. They worked on they did work on balance, which is something that you are struggling with at the moment, but it still isn't the major one. They weren't as intensely, perhaps we should say intensely explorative. Perhaps that's a word. They didn't as intensely explore some of those frequencies. So in other words, their extremes of that weren't as intense as what you're going through. They also had a lot of the healing modalities, very similar to the Sirius energy and the modalities that Sirius has. A lot of these ancient civilizations, as you are rediscovering more and more of them on your planet, they're helping you to recognize that there were higher times on your planet. There are other ways of being and existing, and that you are part of a greater whole. So there are more systems that will start to come into your awareness. The reason that many of them aren't discussed are simply because you're working on ones that played out the same issues that you have going on at a very heightened level, and you have a lot of the genetic material from those systems. That's also another piece and why you're not hearing about these systems quite as much as well. All right? So, Earth is a grand experiment. You've got genetic material from thousands of worlds woven into your DNA. And along with that, you've got all the emotional experiences. So when you've got systems that played out those experiences intensely, you are recreating them here and now, and those are the first ones you're going to connect with.
Okay, excellent. Now, Miss P, before we go on to the next questions, is there anything that you wish to interject at this moment before we go on to the next questions that we have?
At some point here before we leave you, we would like to do another activation to help people to open up to more of their intuitive awareness, and also if they'd like to, that they can open up to their own guides. We can do that a bit later, or we can go on to the next question. We have the feeling that there may be a question in there that leads into the activation.
Yes, there's one here that just came through. I haven't posted it yet. So let's go to the next question though that was in line. This one is from Devin 1122. Question for the P's. I have a very hard time calming my mind and getting into the current moment. I believe that being in the current moment is the key to overcoming anything because it is the only place where you can make decisions about things like beliefs that actually take effect. Could you please give me some advice on how to get my attention into the current moment and maybe even do a language of light activation that could help with that?
Yes, we can do that. So a lot of what we've already talked about. So setting a practice for yourself. Even a meditation practice specifically for you, that's to start with 5 minutes. If your mind just will not quiet, just keep bringing yourself back, bring it back to the present. And then we would say, setting an alarm for yourself. You will be shocked, and some of you will be annoyed as the alarm goes off. By the 4th hour, you might be really annoyed. But, try this for a day or 3 days or 5 days. At the top of every hour, the alarm goes off and you pay attention to where your thoughts are. As we talked about before, what's going on in your body? Where are your emotions? Where are your thoughts? And then recenter yourself. The more you practice this, the more conscious you become of where you're vibrating all the time, because eventually you don't need the alarm clock. It's become a habit. And also you recognize when you dip down in frequency because you notice it doesn't feel so good. And you're used to checking in. You're used to being aware of where you're vibrating. Your awareness is the key. And the mind has become the dominant for you as a species. The mind is what gets the label, the mental, as the masculine energy. Your state of being, your emotional states, that's the feminine. And you have to operate in balance with the feminine and the masculine. And right now, the masculines just run amok. You aren't taking the time to integrate the feminine. And you can't operate in balance that way. You're going to find it exceptionally difficult. Within 16 months, you're going to be hard pressed to function if you do not have your practice in place. We've been saying this for years. And even Wendy right now is going, really? 16 months?
Whoa, better get on the program.
Yes, that you are just going to find that it's too difficult to even function. You'll feel like you're going a bit crazy if you don't have your practices in place. We used to say this to you 10 years ago, that time was going to accelerate and you would feel like you woke up and just went to bed. You're feeling the effects of that now. And if you are not in the driver's seat of where your frequency is, you're going to feel that you're at the mercy of everything else going on around you, all the chaos, all the struggle, and it will not feel good in your body. So you need to get your practices in place now. And really, once you start to do that, life just becomes a lot more fun. You all have this idea that it's going to be a drag. Oh, I've got to do my practices now. It's just about having fun and feeling better and feeling more joyous. And yes, when you start these practices, you might have some lower things coming up because they need to be integrated. You cannot maintain that higher resonance all the time. You will go up and drop out. You will go up and drop out. Hopefully every time you go up, you stay up there for longer, and every time you drop out, you don't drop as far. And that's why setting this alarm at the top of the hour is so important, because you are monitoring your frequency. So your drop is probably not going to be as far before you recalibrate. If you just have your practice in the morning, you walk out the door and you get in the car and you drive to work, well, how many people upset you on the drive? How much has your frequency dropped since you left the house? And then by the end of the day, dealing with everybody at your job, where's your frequency? For most of you, it's pretty low. And then you get back in the car and you drive again. So by the time you come home and are ready to reset your frequency, you're down at the bottom, and it's a big stretch to get back up. So if you are monitoring yourself throughout the day, you can make these course corrections. You can make these frequency adjustments. You're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to enjoy life a lot more, and you're going to find that you're able to create what it is that you want much, much faster. So we will do a language of light activation here for you. This is to help you open up to more of that creative energy, and also to allow the mind to quiet, to open to the feminine. There's this idea that you all have in your collective consciousness that unless you're doing something, it doesn't have any value. if you're just in a receptive state, it's worthless because it's not producing. That's how the collective consciousness has assigned value. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Well, you can't just go out half-cocked. You got to set the frequency. You've got to go out there with your frequency set before you take action, because otherwise the feminine, what it's doing, it's informing the frequency of the action that you take. If you just go at it from the ego level and you aren't taking the time to work with your state of being, you're acting from that ego level, that lower vibrational state, and that is going to determine the quality of the actions that you take. So the feminine is tremendously valuable, and you all have lost that over the last several thousand years. The feminine's been suppressed, the divine feminine. So you're learning to really work with that. So getting quiet, going inside, quieting the mind, paying attention to your emotional states, really, really important. All right? Also, we would say this activation is for you to know that it's safe to experience your emotions. When you suppress emotion, it gets stuffed down, and at some point you are going to have to feel that frequency. You will create another situation that is of the same frequency with what you stuffed down. When you allow yourself to feel that frequency, it's like a pathway out for that stuffed emotion, and that's why sometimes you all might have an experience that we would say on a scale of 1 to 10, you're looking at it and it really should only be about a 2, but you're reacting to it emotionally at a 10. That's because of all the stuff that's been suppressed, and that energy is trying to find its way out. So at some point you are going to have to experience that emotion. Now, you don't have to linger in that emotion. The fastest way to process through emotion is to just observe it. Don't make it wrong. Making it wrong stuffs it back down. But just observe it. How does this feel in my body? What's this doing in my body? Does my body feel warm? Does it feel cold? Does it feel tingly? Does it feel numb? Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel tense? If it feels tense, where is it tense? Give the emotion a label if you want. This is one way that you can start to discern the subtleties of frequency. Oh, this is annoyance. This isn't anger. This is annoyance. Or, oh, this is concern, or this is worry. Those feel different to you. So you can give it a label and just acknowledge it. And then where are your thoughts? As you observe this, that allows it a pathway out. You're in a neutral state. You're not lingering in it, because what many of you will do is stay in the loop of the emotion. You'll walk around for 3 or 4 days before you decide you're bored with it, and you'll let it go. So just allow yourself to experience it, and that's the fastest way through it. All right, so take a breath. We'll see where we go with the activation. Ikato ota para ketondo ora indu kita ambiru disambalo biri para skuto ora ambiri biri skuto onda para bigu para kita undo e kita patus kita para undo e para umbo ikato anda ara biri biri skuto undo ora para rupa kita undo kita tuwe para kita abra muwe kita patus kita imbo e kita bulu ni lubere e kita o kita patus kita undo kita ola ar kita uwe kita abra uwe para patas kita patus ola aruinda ore para kita uwe kita poe para kita para uwe kita Indora, we kept up a room at Capitation alla Luwin Daily would have been just the wind the day kita, how oil we eat the early in Midikata, in Vitashkata, and we MBP, well, we did it. Take a nice deep breath. Istondo ora are katando ora shkato undo oi min katanda ala ara kotoi, hamba ora arankata arakato oi imuna nandikata hashta ala o. Hondo ora e bereshkete endarai ha andasta sashkatai hingata ta andu ora inba abe eguto o inga alo orendeste hisha atoto inda ada este hisa shkato odo ora e ngwen pate inda raraikta Imberakada imbera ingwid imbrura praskata biriskata berura berisuera berinda leli berinda dari sa skata ndui imbera biriskata tolle beraskata indarahi inda lolora berindura muinde kata inda lolora berinda deriskate inda rendere ruera berindura ndura berinda dere he lolora indora beraskata ndura nduita sakata ndura bere indara he Hi uwe imwe mwe nanane no anane hindaro arabaresta
Take another nice deep breath. All right, so where else would you like to go?
Whoa. I don't know. That one took me places. I don't know about the rest of everyone. Wow, that was cool.
Yes, we'd have everyone else take another nice deep breath because we see a lot of people not in their bodies. All right? Very good.
All right. Okay. Well, wow. Would you like to take a couple of more questions before we run out of time? All right.
Yes, happy to.
How do we allow the release of habits that are self-sabotaging? And then the last question I think we're going to have time for is, what is the key in activating multidimensional hearing ability?
All right. So as far as your key to allowing the release of habits is to choose new frequencies. So if you know you have a habit, let's say it's a control habit, which just about all of you on the planet have. Control is a sneaky one, and you all are running it. So pay attention to where you're allowing without having to control. So you don't have to mentally figure it out. You just have to pick the new frequency. So I allow. Monitor where your thoughts are in the check-in. Are you thinking about the future or the past? If you're thinking about the future and the past, you're not in the now moment. There is a time to examine those things, and that is time that you set aside to really explore and to look at the past and the future. The rest of the day, you should be present in the moment. If you're thinking, all right, I've got 50 things to do, I need to go to the grocery store, and then I need to go to the gas station, I need to wash the car, I need to pick up the kids. If this is where your thoughts are, then you're trying to control. Be present in the moment. All right, I'm going to go to the grocery store right now, and then be present in the grocery store. When you're done with that activity, make the next choice. That actually allows you to accomplish your task in a much faster way. So that's just one example. If you're not feeling safe, maybe that's your habit that you stay very closed, you're not emotionally available with other people. If you're aware of that habit, then what's the opposite of that? All right, it's safe to be in my body. Then imagine what would that feel like. And just keep going back to that. If you're setting the alarm, do it at the top of the hour. I'm safe. What would it feel like to be safe? You can either say, I am this thing, or I wonder what it would be like to be this thing. And both of those statements, and feeling and imagining it, will put you in resonance with the frequency. It doesn't matter, because it's really about you focusing on a frequency, however you want to say it, but you're imagining it, and that will put it out, and that will start to become your reality, because the more you focus and repeat it, that becomes the new neural pathway, that becomes the new habit. You're not trying to change the old one. It can't be changed. But what you're doing is putting your emphasis and your energy on what you want to build instead of trying to break down something else. Just shift it to what you want to build. And this goes with society as well. Don't fight against something that is broken already. Put your energy into building something that you want to see. All right? So that's our answer to that. And as for activating multidimensional hearing abilities, we're going to give you two answers, because we're not certain exactly how you're phrasing this. So the activation that we just gave will help. We would say for many of you, it's a safety issue. You're not feeling safe. You're not feeling safe in your body. You're not feeling safe on the planet. You're not feeling safe opening up to interdimensional beings because you're not sure who you're connecting with. So part of what we've already talked about using your discernment and trusting in yourself, feeling safe and trusting in yourself, those two things will help you open up your intuitive gifts. So we'll do a brief activation for you here in just a moment for that. And then don't be set on how you interpret that vibrational frequency when it enters your field. You will interpret it through one of the five senses. One is typically stronger, and there's a genetic propensity for that. So you might be someone who hears, and you're wanting to see visually. all right? Or maybe you're someone who feels, or you think you're someone who feels, and all of a sudden you're hearing stuff. So don't be locked into how it comes in. Just recognize it in the moment as it does come. It will seem like your imagination. So we'll do a very brief activation for this, and let's see where we go. All right, take a breath. We'll say one last thing here about that, and that is that, it will seem like your imagination. You're working with subtle frequencies. The higher frequencies aren't as gross, they're not as obvious as the ones that you encounter as part of your physical reality. Right now, your programming says to you that only the things that I can experience with the five senses are real. And you're having to retrain yourself that those subtle frequencies, which don't have an expression in physical matter in the same way that the rest of your reality does, that you're learning to interpret those. And you will say to yourself at first, this feels like my imagination. Ask yourself, does this resonate? And all of you know internally if it does or it doesn't. You know whether it's the truth or not. You know when you're kidding yourself. If you're really honest, there's a part of you that goes, I know this is just my wishful thinking. Or, yes, there's something that has a kernel of resonance in there that's truth. And it doesn't really matter, even if it was your imagination. What is your imagination? It is, in many ways, a creative expression of source energy. So use your discernment there. And then what you will find is the more you play with that, is that when you connect, it's far richer than just your imagination. Your imagination actually will feel rather flat in comparison to multidimensional information. It will feel rich. It will feel full. You'll feel like there are multiple levels you may not have the verbiage for. You may not have a way to articulate it, just as Rebecca was saying earlier. She didn't have a way to articulate how she works, but she knows what it is internally. She knows how to do it. And it's the same thing here. You might not know quite the language to conceptualize the information, but there is a part of you that just says, all right, I have this knowingness. That's why often when you get in the heart center, you've got a million questions. The second you get into that heart center, all the questions go away because you're accessing the answers in the heart-centered space. You realize that they're not important or you have an answer for it. Then you go back to the mind and all the questions come back. All right, so trust yourselves. And you'll start to build up that trust. You'll get confirmation that, oh, I trusted it. It was true. It worked out. So the next time you go back and you have that same sensation, it will be easier for you to trust in it or to recognize whether it is a truth for you or it's not. All right? So we hope that helps.
That was absolutely beautiful and perfect. And based on the conversations going on in the chat room, everyone had a marvelous experience with the light code activations and, of course, the answers and the information that you've shared with us tonight, Mrs. P. This has just been a true joy to have you on. And I'm so thankful, and I hope that we can have you on again in a few more months. And that would just be marvelous. I would just love that.
It's such a pleasure for us. And for all of you, know that you can connect with us directly. You don't need Wendy. Just simply put yourself in your heart center, think of something that makes you smile, and then ask your question and listen. All right? As we said, use your discernment. And it will feel like your imagination. And until then, we'll be watching and waiting and sending many well wishes and a tremendous amount of gratitude to you, Rebecca, for allowing us this opportunity to share.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm back.
Hi, honey.
Hi.
You and her and them all worked very hard tonight.
Oh, it was easy. That's the easy part.
Oh, bless your heart. Yes, yes, yes. That was absolutely beautiful. I don't know how much of it that you retain. I know that when I do that, I have little bits and pieces. Then as time goes on, those bits and pieces kind of go away. I retain them in a different level, but not as a recall. But it was an absolutely fascinating evening, Wendy, for myself and for certainly all of the people that were listening there. I'm getting all kinds of thank yous and wonderfulness and everything from the chat room. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's so lovely to be back and to chat with you and all of your listeners and all the great questions that we had tonight. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Your website again is higherfrequencies.net. And I know you said you were doing a 5-week course in the archetypes. And is there anything else coming up that you would like to draw the attention of the audience to, or any other announcements that you'd like to make tonight?
We do have Galactic Light Code Monthly that'll be coming up here. That'll probably be out in the next couple days. So that's a code and an activation to support the energies for the month. There's more information on the website about that. And then December 30th, I'll be doing an event here in LA with the Channel Panel. So there are, I've forgotten exactly how many. I think there are 8 or 9 of us. Some amazing channels. Daryl Anka, Lee Harris, Nora Harold, and many, many more. Rob Gautier has put this together with his lovely partner, Kalina Angel. So if you're here locally on the 30th, we'd love to see you. I'd love to meet you in person. So that's going on, and there's more on the website as well.
Well, and we're all out of time. And Wendy, I look forward to hopefully having you back on in a few more months. And for everybody else, thank you so much for joining in. Until we meet again, where will your life's journey lead you? Many blessings, everyone, and good night. Good night, Wendy. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everyone.